Alright, so picture this scenario. Typically when you meet someone and they're like, hey man, you like video games? And then the first thing they ask is, what do you like? Unlike most people, I think it's important to have as much of a diverse taste as you possibly can. So as a result, I always think of the first things I like. And this is going to be my little list that's like, hey, here's my top 10 franchises of video games. Along with this list, I'm also going to list my favorite in each series, because I think that would be cool as well. In no way is this video meant to be, hey, here's my answer, so I just don't have to list it out, but I do think it's kind of a fun thing to do, so this way, at least when I repeat myself over and over again, that, you know, here's why I feel the way that I do. I think that there's a difference between being a gamer and being a fan of a single genre. If you only watched horror films, would you consider yourself a movie buff? Would you consider yourself a huge music fan if you only listen to country? No, there's a difference. You gotta have a diversity in taste, and that's what I think is important. And I have a diversity in taste, goddammit, and you're about to see it. Granted, some of them are gonna be probably a little bit more biased, or you can nitpick and say, well, you cater to this, but at least I can say that I do both adult and childish shit. So for starters, one of my favorite games is going to be one of the most adult games ever, and that's going to be the Mortal Kombat series. My favorite Mortal Kombat game in this series is Trilogy. I've went on and on about that game so many times it's not even funny. Trilogy is a fucking awesome game. But this was a game that's always been like around as long as I can remember, because it's about as old as me, and I've always had a game, so I've always been able to play Trilogy, or 4, or Deadly Alliance, or Deception, and it's always evolved and gotten better over time, and I find it just overall fascinating. I'm not like a huge complex fighting guy kind of deal, I won't lie to you about that, but I do think that the Mortal Kombat games are really good and really fun to play. So the ironic thing is, as a kid, I thought the idea of Donkey Kong games were probably going to be really stupid and really not fun and all that. But as an adult, they turned out to be one of my favorite games ever, and it's actually kind of ironic to look back at it now. My favorite one in the series is going to be Donkey Kong Country 2. I think it's balanced the best. I think it's got everything that it needs to. That's just really good and really interesting, and all the worlds are good. But I will give praise to at least 3 for, like, being able to mix things up a lot better. 1, I'm half and half. Like, I don't hate it, but it's not my favorite. But it did help establish what we know and love today. I love Donkey Kong 64. They've all got such great music. They're all designed incredibly well. Rare did such a good job. I'm not particularly crazy about the Return series, but I will say that at least Tropical Freeze definitely upped it with their game design and original content much, much better than Returns. So I can at least give Tropical Freeze a nod for being a good game, but it's not one I've played yet because blatantly it's kind of hard to see what's going on because you're half the size you were in the SNES, and then there's a huge distracting background and everything's constantly moving, so I find it a little bit harder to play, but there you go. Another one that's kind of fun was, like, as a kid, when I was playing Super Smash Brothers, my neighbors hated Kirby, and they called him a stupid pink little marshmallow, and I was like, yeah, that's cool, but now that I'm older, it turns to be one of my favorites because it's almost impossible to find a Kirby game that people really don't like. Kirby's got a lot of really good games, Kirby's got a lot of really good music, Kirby's got a lot of really redeeming qualities to it as a series and as a franchise, and that's really good considering they, like, spill out a lot of Kirby games. Let's not even sugarcoat it, there's been a lot. But as far as like creativity, and my personal favorite and most appealing thing is going to be how surreal the game is. It's got a lot of off-the-wall shit that doesn't make sense and just feels like they all did some sort of drugs and then were like, hey man, let's make a game, except let's make a game that's good. And because I didn't mention it, my favorite in the series is actually going to be Triple Deluxe. I think it's much better than Superstar and Nightmare and 64. I think it had a lot more of those aha moments and a lot of good returning moments, and the combat system is incredibly well done. Everything makes sense, it's consistent, and it makes useless power-ups more useful, and everything's just really, really good in that game. Another one of my favorites is going to be the Pokemon series, and it's weird for me to say that not because I don't like Pokemon, but because for so long I was stuck on only the first 3 generations, as to where now when I've played Omega Ruby, it's gotten me to like and enjoy just how far the series has come and how much better the games have gotten. Everything's become a lot more easier, everything's become a lot more well established, everything they've just made better and more user friendly. so I much appreciate what they've done over time. I'm still not like the biggest RPG fan, but I'll have a bias with Pokemon because it's like, hey man, it's Pokemon. I've loved it since I was a fucking kid. My favorite in the series, I'm gonna be honest and say it's kind of a tie between Omega Ruby and Fire Red. Because although I think Fire Red did a lot of things perfect, I think Omega Ruby did a lot of things perfect as well. Some things I wish were in the others, like I love the super training in Omega, but I love buying stones in Fire Red. You can still get the stones in Omega, it's just a little bit more challenging. And by that I mean, like, time consuming. So it's a tie between the two. I think they're both incredible games. Now the reason this one's placed the way it is because whenever I say Mario series, I'm counting every single spin-off as well. So when I say Mario series, I don't just mean Super Mario Brothers, I don't mean the Super Mario series, the Mario Kart series, the Smash Brothers series, then there's the sports games, the party games, the doctor games. So there's a lot of really, really good Mario games to enjoy. That's generally why I just say Mario, because what the fuck isn't there to enjoy about a Mario game? Mario games are incredible, they're very well done, they're very well established. Everyone knows the name. It's like Mickey Mouse of video games. I'll be honest and say it's a little bit harder to narrow down my favorite in the series because of the way I just generalized it, so we'll do our best. Either Galaxy or 64, Mario Kart 64, Smash 4, Dr. Mario 64, and I don't really care about Mario Party because I've only played 4 and I only own 2, so I can't really give a very fair answer on that. But overall, the Mario games, there's a lot of them, there's a lot of things to love. It's impossible to not have it as one of your favorite series, unless you've just completely strayed away from Nintendo as a whole, then yeah, it's possible. But otherwise, you kind of can't turn on the biggest name in gaming history ever to exist, period. Next up is going to be the Zelda series. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that I will only spend money I don't have if it's Zelda related. So right now I got my pre-order of Breath of the Wild. I bought Skyward Sword when it was new. I own a Master Sword and a Hylian Shield. I've got a Spiritual Stone necklace. I've got a Majora t-shirt, and then I've got a Hylian Crest t-shirt. So I've got a lot of Zelda stuff. Ocarina of Time is my favorite. It's been like one of my favorite games as a child, and I'm gonna say one of the best games ever, but I know a lot of people are really divided between that and Link to the Past. I just don't like 2D Zeldas. That's all there is to say about it. If I can't play it and I can't enjoy it, it's not gonna be a game I like. It's that simple. So because I can play and enjoy Ocarina of Time, that's gonna be my preferred one. But Zelda's always been a game series that you've always been easily able to invest yourself into and then just get incredibly immersed in the story, and like everything about it has like such a charm that I feel the Mario games don't have, because it's story driven. And there you go. So I'm only saying this one because apparently I wrote it down earlier, but I was kind of like conflicting with myself because I just said that this one wouldn't count, but fuck it, if I wrote it down, it counts. So if there's one game series I've wasted more time and more money on in my life than Zelda, it's Rock Band. So for starters, I met McFuggles because we both went to school together, but we became friends because we both played Rock Band a fucking ton. I spent an entire summer, I think it was summer of 2008, like every day I was over at his house playing Rock Band while I was on the bass and he was on the drums, and we were just kicking ass. I've spent over $200 in just buying DLC alone. I've got 2 guitars. We've had to... I've got Rock Band 2 and 3. I would love to get 1. It's just the fucking stupid controller is not compatible, so there's no point in buying one unless I want to buy an entirely new controller, which is garbage. But everything about it I've spent countless hours into, I've spent countless dollars into. I've perfected over 188 songs on Expert. Like, that game has stolen so much of my life, it's not even funny. But it's one of my favorites, it's one I love. So there you go, I like rhythm games. And what makes it easier is like the song selection is all good songs, all songs you know in real life, all things you enjoy. You're like, hey man, let's jam out to some fucking Megadeth, put the bitch on, play some fucking Megadeth. It's that simple. Okay, so here we go, another one. Now, another series that I own like a lot of things about is going to be the Resident Evil series. I'm like 1 game shy of the GameCube collection. So right now I've got Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4, Veronica, and then I've got Revelations, both on the 3DS and on the Wii U. I would also love to get 0, and I would love to get 5, 6, and Revelations 2. So right there, if that doesn't show how much I like Resident Evil, I don't know what does, because not only do I have a bunch of the fucking games, but there's still a bunch of the fucking games that I goddamn want. I think the games are incredibly entertaining. Of them all, one's gonna be my favorite, because that's what got me into the series, and I think it's, again, one of those perfect games where it's designed incredibly well. And there you go. Like, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in my top GameCube games, but yeah, Resident Evil 1's just really good. I like the horror survival theme a lot better than the action theme, but I'll still play and enjoy the action stuff. I won't even lie to you and say that I don't. Revelations is like a weird mix between the two, but I really get super immersed when I'm playing the horror style things because I'm like on edge, I'm interested, I'm invested. The story is kind of like half and half, but I feel like the first 1, 2, 3, and Veronica do a much better job at establishing what's going on because they're all within close proximity to each other. They all take place really close to each other. They all follow like the same thing. And then 4 onwards, they just kind of say fuck it and just make up random stories as opposed to this one thing. So it's kind of weird, but I really like it. Okay, here we go. To me, this isn't just another shooter. This is the shooter. This is what made people like shooters more than anything, and guess what? It made me like James Bond in shooters more than anything. James Bond is already one of the most established characters ever in history. He's over 100 years old. He's fucking awesome. And yeah, there you go. My favorite in the series is Nightfire. The one that got me into the series was World's Not Enough. I always heard people talk about GoldenEye and how they played GoldenEye, but I never got to own it until I was like, what, 12, 13? It was back when we came to America. So it was a thing that eluded me, but between the two, I always preferred World's Not Enough over GoldenEye because I feel like it did things better. But I just find it incredibly fun, incredibly goofy, incredibly silly, incredibly creative. It's loaded with a bunch of things that you don't typically see in most shooters. It's diverse, it's interesting, there's just so much good to say about franchise, and I kind of hate that no one else feels that way except for me. But at the same time, I guess you can count that as my unique quality as opposed to the world's. But there you go, James Bond. I love me the shit out of some James Bond. So, Metroid is technically not something I really played until I was like, what, I think 14? But it's still one of my favorite series ever. I fell in love with Samus because of Super Smash Brothers, and I was like, holy shit, she's so much fun to play with. And then there was the nerd flinging, and it was great, and she became one of my favorites pretty quickly. And then when I played Zero Mission, which is my favorite in the series, I fell in love with what the series was because it was so immersive, it was so interesting, there was so much fascination to it, there's so much secrets, it's good. I like Super Metroid, I like Metroid 2, I like Metroid Prime. I don't really care for Prime 2, and I don't really care for Other M, but no one cares for Other M, so there you go. All the music in it's great, all the gameplay in all those are pretty great. I won't lie and say that it has things in there that I don't like, but it's always been one of my favorites and always been one that I really like. For fuck's sake, I've got the woman on my skin. So there you go. I love the series, I love the character, I love Metroid. I want it to be good. I want it to be better than it's been in the last 10 years. Nothing quite captures me like playing those games do. Nothing's quite as fascinating as like what it does. It's got its own genre among itself because of how good and interesting and diverse and fun it is. Like, that doesn't say something, I don't know what does. So that's just to name my top 10 favorites. Other things that I really like that I didn't list would be like the Phoenix Wright games and then Silent Hill games. Those are pretty good too. But it's always fun whenever they're like, hey man, what's your favorite? And then I start listing off all of those. And it does sound like, yeah, there's a fair amount of kiddie stuff. But like when people are like, hey, don't you play adult games? I'm like, oh, sorry. Was, James Bond, Resident Evil, Mortal Kombat, Silent Hill not adult enough for you? Because, like, it shows that I can do both. I've listed shooters, I've listed horror, I've listed rhythm, I've listed platformers, I've listed fighters. Like, that, I think, right there kind of establishes that I'm not just a one-trick pony. I like everything. So, I wish more people kind of thought and felt like I did, because I do think that there's so much more involved and so much more to enjoy in gaming than just sticking with one little thing and just doing nothing else, and to have an open mind and appreciate what else out there is out. There's a lot of good games, there's a lot of good series. But there you go, those are the first 10 that I could think of that I've spent not only numerous hours and numerous dollars into, but have left impressions on my heart numerous times and other sappy shit. So there you go. I'm JC4R, tell me what you like, or what you agree with or disagree with. Bye.